called Tachash. There is an extremely beautiful, colorful animal that only existed in that time. Hashem made it for that time. And they used that skin to cover the Mishkan. So that's a trap, hunt animals. So you have the malach of trapping, hunting. So that's why we can't do tzod, we can't do trapping on Shabbos. Now, Mina Torah, according to the Torah, the prohibition of tzad only applies to animals that people usually trap, as opposed to flies, mosquitoes, bees. Those are not animals that people trap. Is this something that, I'm going to hunt, we're hunting bees, we're hunting flies, we're hunting mosquitoes. It's not a type of animal that people trap. Yeah, you will try to get it to put a cup over it because you don't want it to bite you, to sting you. But it's not a animal that's the derech to trap. So according to the Torah, the prohibition of tzad, trapping, hunting, is only by animals that people usually trap, but as opposed to animals like flies, mosquitoes, bees, it's not the derech to trap. So according to the Torah, that's not prohibited, but still rabbinically it's still prohibited to trap all these other animals, bees, mosquitoes, wasps, rats. You're not allowed to. Someone had a question here? No?
Oh, I was gonna ask that it's only for like prohibited, not permitted, but you answered.
It's only Torah,
Like,
only
no, like
rabbinically prohibited.
Yeah, like
Right.
to be like to chop like those bugs.
The other bugs only rabbinically prohibited. Right. Now, so here's the issue. You open up your cupboard and you find flies inside. It should never happen. But let's say you find flies inside. It's very not pleasant. But other than the unpleasantness is Shabbos. Now, what's the issue? There's flies in there. So what's the problem? I'm not going to trap them anyways. Yeah, but when you finish taking what you need, you're going to close the door. Now you're trapping the flies inside. So if you open up the cupboard and you see flies flying around, you can't close it because you're trapping it. Now, the RPs that say it's not really trapping because it's not like after you close the door, you can really get it. Usually trapping means that it's trapped in a way that it's trapped. Trap means that it's trapped means that if you want it, it's trapped. You can take it. When you close the cupboard and you trap the flies and mosquitoes inside, it's not like, oh, now I have them trapped. Now if I ever want to get a mosquito, okay, hypothetically speaking, now if I need a mosquito, I need a fly, I just open it up and I take a fly. No, you can open it up and it's gonna be flying, it's gonna be still flying. So some say it's not really, there is doubt if this is really considered trapping, but halachically it's still considered trapping. You're not supposed to close the cupboard, but there is a leniency that Rebbe brings that if you don't see flies, if you open it up and you see flies in there, and then you make sure that those flies come out, they fly out. Now you want to close the cupboard, but you're saying, 1 second, maybe there's another fly still inside there I don't see. Let me check to see if there's any more flies. Now, Rebbe says you don't have to go crazy and start looking for if there's more flies. You could be lenient. It's fine. Now, Rebbe has another interesting reason. Now, Rebbe says, being that you don't know if there's flies in there, then it's not what's called a psik reishi. What's a psik reishi? Psik reishi is.
Oh, I remember this.
Yes, psik reishi.
Begin ahead.
Yeah, we spoke about this. Psik reishi means chop off the head. Psik means chop. Reishi means the head. In Aramaic, and reishi, like you have reish, the head, reishi also means head in Aramaic, chop of the head. The Gemara speaks about that they would use, sometimes kids used to play with the head of a chicken. So someone's going to say, "Oh, I need a head from a chicken for my child to play with, but I don't intend to kill the chicken. I'm just going to chop off the head. The intention is not to kill the chicken. We just need a head." So I'm going to chop off the head. It's obviously ridiculous. It makes no sense. You're killing the chicken. It's called killing the chicken. The same because also this psikiration is a term we use to describe a act they do on Shabbos where it's not your intention. It's not your intention, but that's what's happening. So I always use the classic, this example, I always use this, open the refrigerator, the light goes on. You open the refrigerator, the light goes on. It's not my intention light should go on, but that's happening. It's called the psikiration. And that's prohibited, even though it's not your intention. Over here, when you're closing the cupboard and there might be flies in there, so you might be considered trapping, but it's not a psikiration. It's not for sure that there's flies. It's a doubt if there's flies. So now Teves also adds that reason inside there, because being that it's a doubt, if there's really flies in there, so it's not a psikiration, it's a suffix psikiration. It's a doubt if it's a psikiration. So therefore, that's another reason why you can't be lenient, that even though there might be flies in there, when you're closing the cupboard, you're trapping the flies, but it's not your intention to trap them. And we don't know for sure if there's flies. Maybe there is no flies. So it's not a psikiration, it's a suffix. It's a doubt if it's a psikiration. That's why Dal Teves says you can't be lenient.
So you can't close the door.
You can't close the door, even though there might be flies in there, but you don't know.
But
You don't know if there's flies in there, so you could close it.
If you see them, then it's.
Whatever you see, if you see, you can't. But if you don't see, then you can just close it. Yeah.
So a psikiration means
Psikiration means psikiration means when you're doing an act without intention to do a malacha. You're not intending to. Let's say you're walking outside in the street, and there's an ant, pile of ants, and you're walking and walk right through the ants and step on them and kill them. Right? Let's say it's not my intention to kill them, but if you're stepping on it, you're going to kill them, so you can't step on it. That's called a psikiration. You can't do that in Shabbos because you're doing an act that's desecrating Shabbos. But when there's a doubt if it's a psikiration, combination of the other reason that we mentioned before, over here, when you are closing the cupboard, you're not necessarily trapping it because it's not really trapped. It's not really trapped. It's like I got it now. Trap means it's trapped and you have it. You can just take it. Here, when you open up the cupboard, I trapped them. Yeah, you trapped. I trapped them. The flies inside. I closed the cupboard. Now they're trapped. Now, what does it mean trapped? Now you can open up and grab a fly? No. You can open it up. You're going to try and grab them. They're going to start flying out. So, combination of both reasons together, Dal Teves is lenient over here. By the way, there is a whole discussion. We're talking about. Dal Teves gives the reason. It's a doubt. It's a psikiration. There's a whole discussion if a doubt psikiration is prohibited or not. There are different opinions about it. It's not clear to me what Dal Teves holds. Over here, Dal Teves, a combination of both reasons together. Dal Teves is lenient over here with closing the cupboard. Just a side note about this issue, the issue also comes up with opening a oven on Shabbos. Reason why we can't open the oven on Shabbos when the oven is working is because if the oven is on but not working, but not necessarily on. In other words, the oven goes going to the thermostat. It goes on and off, on and off. Now, if you open up the oven while it's off, cold air could come in. Cold air will come in, but then it might trigger the thermostat to go on. You're causing the oven to go on Shabbos. That's why you're not supposed to open it up. Now, is it for sure that when you open up the oven and the cold air goes in, it's going to cause it to go on? It's not for sure, but it's possible. So that's why we're strict, because it's possible that you might cause it to go on. Then it goes into the category of a suffix psikiration. It's a doubt that it's psikiration. We don't know for sure if it's happening, and we try to be careful with this. though there may be opinions that are lenient. That's why you will find people that will open it up because it's not their intention. It's not for sure going to go on. So there is room for leniencies, those who are lenient, but l'chatchila, one should be strict. Continuing with trapping. So we have like this. So there's a fly, there's a bee buzzing around you, and you're not allowed to take a cup and cover up the bee and trap the bee. Even if you're afraid that it might sting you, you're still not allowed to trap it. There are some lenient opinions. Now, today it seems that it's strict that you cannot trap a bee, even if you're afraid it's going to sting you and it's going to hurt you. Unless someone there's people there who have if they get stung by a bee, it could be dangerous. Some people get a very strong allergic reaction to bees. So then you're allowed to trap the bee. But otherwise, according to Dal Tedeb, it seems that you're not allowed to. If you want to trap an animal that you're concerned that it might hurt people, then you're allowed to trap them. Chacham al-Sages were lenient in case of people getting hurt, that you could trap them. And the reasoning is because you're not trapping them the regular way. You are trapping usually is if a trap where they're trapped. But if you take a cup, something, and you cover it over it, it's not the conventional way of trapping. So the Alter is lenient in case that if it might hurt people, that you could trap it this way.
So you can't trap a bee?
No, if it's gonna hurt, not bee is pain. Okay, I wasn't clear. Bee is issue of pain. Then there's some animals that if there's a concern that it might hurt people mean not just pain, they'll be hurt, meaning they have to go to the hospital. Not talking about life and death. Then, of course, if it's pikuach nefesh, discussing where there's a concern that's going to make them not life and death, but they can get sick. Sometimes there are sometimes the rats that could have rabies or things like that, that you have to go to the hospital. It'll make you sick. So in that situation, if there's such a concern, then you're allowed to trap them. Not kill. Killing is not allowed, but trapping is allowed in that situation. When you have your own animal that's a domesticated animal, that's your pet, that follows whatever you tell them to do, bring it into the house, out of the house, there's no issue of trapping when you bring them into the house because it's yours, that they follow whatever you tell them. It's not like you have to go trapping them, so that's not an issue. Any questions about trapping, hunting? Yeah.
So
Okay, so we'll go to the next. What?
with your animal, there's no concern if you close them in a room because you're not actually trapping them, like they're your animal and they listen to you.
Right. No, it's being that they listen to you. They follow your orders. You just tell them come, and they come. Then it's not called trapping, because trapping means we have to do an act. Trapping usually means you got to trap this animal, run, trap it, trap them. The animal comes by themselves because you're telling them, let's go, they go. It's not called trapping. You can just, the main point over here is because if you want to grab them, you can just go and grab them. You don't have to chase them. In other words, if something gets trapped already, let's say you trapped an animal. It's trapped. Now, there's such a thing as trapping them again. They're already trapped. They're trapped. Let's say deer's trapped in this room. Now you can just take it. You can't trap it. It's already trapped. An animal that follows you, so it's you have it already. It's like you trapped it already. It's like it's yours. You could just come over to it and take it, and you don't have to chase it around. So there's no issue of trapping. Okay, so the next malacha is the malacha of shechting. In the Mishkan, they would shecht the animal because they needed the skin, so that they were shechted first. So you can't kill animals. That's why shechting means killing the animal. You can't kill animals. And also, you cannot take out blood from an animal, from a person, because the pasuk says, "Ki adam hu nefesh." The blood is the soul. The person lives by the blood, so the blood is the soul. So when you take out, if you take out blood, that's included in the prohibition of killing an animal, taking out the neshama. That's why you can't cause any bleeding on Shabbos. And that's the issue with, let's say, injection. One of the issues with giving an injection on Shabbos is because it causes bleeding. There's another issue with an injection on Shabbos because you are making an opening. And if you make an opening, it's rabbinically prohibited. In the malacha building, if you make an opening two directions, that's called building. It's called if it's by a keli, then it goes into the category of tikkun keli, of fixing something. This one of the malachs in the Mishkan is completing the vessel. So if you make, let's say, a hole, let's say you make a hole in a chicken coop because you want it's very stuffy in there. The air is very stuffy in there. You want the air, get the air out and bring light inside, so it goes two directions. Then that's the prohibition of tikkun keli, like when we spoke about the other day, when you take cutting tissues, cutting napkins, the toilet paper, because you're making it fit to be used. I gave an example. If I need something, it's too loud in the room, and I need a piece of tissue to stuff up my ears, I take off a piece. So by me cutting it, I'm making it fit for use. So that's tikkun keli, making something fit for use. So included in that is also making something functional. When you make a hole in let's say the chicken coop, so now that you can have fresh air coming in, and all the stuffy stuff, and then others the stuffy air coming out, and bringing light inside. That's considered tikkun keli. If it's only in one direction, then it's rabbinically prohibited. So getting back to injection, why is giving an injection an issue on Shabbos? Because when giving an injection, you are making an opening to put something inside. That's one issue. The other issue is you're causing bleeding also. So getting back to over here, we're talking about the malacha of sheichet, of shechting, which is taking out blood. That's why, let's say if someone has a splinter and you're allowed to take out a splinter on Shabbos, you're allowed to take out a splinter on Shabbos, it's permitted. You have to be careful not to cause any bleeding. So if you do it carefully enough that the chances are that it won't bleed because you know what you're doing, you're allowed to take it out. Take out the splinter. Once if it ends up bleeding, does it mean you transgressed Shabbos? Then it says, no, you didn't transgress Shabbos even if it bleeds. How can it be? Because the bleeding didn't transgress Shabbos. Because you were careful. You were careful. Very nice you were careful, but you caused bleeding. So the rule is, this is a general rule that works across the board when it comes to Shabbos. And that is anytime you do an act on Shabbos that's not a psikadation, it's not a definite act. When you take out the splinter, it's not for sure going to bleed. It's not a psikadation. Also, combination of the fact that that's not your intention. I mean, you have not your intention, and you have no gain, you have no interest. You have nothing to benefit from the fact that it's bleeding. Hypothetically, okay, just give you a little hypothetical now for the sake of understanding this. Let's say, take out the splinter, you try that it shouldn't bleed because it chops, but really, if it bleeds a little bit, it's good for it. It benefits. So then you wouldn't be allowed because there's something you have some invested interest if it does bleed. But being it's not your intention, you have no interest, you don't want it to bleed, and it's not for sure going to bleed, you're allowed to. Rather, I think when it comes to some burns, I remember once had a situation, someone had a burn. I think they rub it as soon as they want it. There's something else. Something about rubbing it. They rub the burn to heal it, even if it causes a little bleeding. Anyways, whatever. Remember something like that. But in any case, in this situation, that's why you're allowed to take out the splinter, because you're careful that it should not bleed. Yes.
Psik reisha means that you do an act without having the intention.
No, psik reisha means you're doing an act that's for sure going to happen. That's for sure. A malacha is for sure going to happen.
When you do.
Like, what is the translation of psik reisha? Chop off the head. Just like you chop off the head of a chicken, the chicken is going to die. So too, when you are, let's say, opening the fridge, the light is going to go on. So that's a psik reisha. So any act that's a definite act, that act for sure is doing a malacha, that is called a psik reisha.
Oh, so this.
No, what I'm saying, what I said now was that when is it allowed, let's say, in taking out a splinter, because it's not a psik reisha, meaning it's not for sure going to bleed, and also a combination of the fact you're not interested in bleeding, you don't want it to bleed. That makes it permitted. So the fact that it's not a psik reisha, that alone does not allow you to do something because it's not a psik reisha. It has to be a combination of the fact that you have no gain by it, you have no interest in this happening.
So psik reisha acts are not permitted. Like if
Psik reisha is right. Anytime it's a psik reisha, which means that by you doing something, the malacha is going to happen. It's not your intention, but it's happening. Whether you like it or not, this is going to happen. Like opening the fridge. Light is going on. The light is going to go on. So, but even if, let's say, you're not interested in the light going on, right? Doesn't matter. But it's going to go on. You're not allowed. Also, sometimes people know they open up the window next to the thermostat for the heating in the house, and it's gonna go on the heating. So you have to be careful. I know in my house, you have to open up the door of the porch. It's right opposite. Many times I noticed during the week, I try to be careful Shabbos because it creates an issue when it comes to Shabbos. You're opening up the door, and the cold air comes in. It makes the heat go on. It's similar to the oven in a certain way. I think it's even almost every time I open it up, the heat goes on. So it's either psik reisha or it could be suffix psik reisha, or somewhere in the middle. It's like almost every time I open up the door, 10 seconds later, the heat went on. So my house on Shabbos, can't open up the porch door every day. I don't think it's if for sure it's permanent, the likelihood that it's not allowed because it's almost every time it goes on. So have to be careful unless there's another door I could close, then it blocks it. Yeah, clear? Okay, so we discussed the melacha of sheichet. Now I'm going to go to the next melacha of me'abed. Me'abed, the melacha of tanning. The Mishkan, they had the melacha of me'abed because we spoke about the skin, we spoke about shechting the animal for the skin. There's actually another melacha that doesn't have any practical application, and that is they have to skin the animal, mafshid, they have to pull off the skin from the animal. But it doesn't have any practical application to us. But then afterwards, they would take the skin and they would tan it. Tan it is a process of tanning to change the texture of the skin to turn it into what they needed it for to cover the Mishkan. You can't just take plain raw skin, put it over the Mishkan. You have to go through a tanning process with salt and different chemicals, whatever they did to change the texture. So that's the love of Me'abit. Me'abit. By the way, talking about tanning, I mean, question is, obviously we're not talking about suntan, but just going back, we spoke about the melacha of tzivea, the melacha of dyeing. There are some opinions that say, I think the suntan on Shabbos is prevalent because of tzivea, because of dyeing. There are some opinions that say, not everyone agrees, but some say it's dyeing because you're sitting in the sun intentionally to change the color of the skin. So some say that's included in the melacha of tzivea. So lechatchila, one should not do that in Shabbos. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be in the sun on Shabbos. It means if that's your intention. In other words, it doesn't go so far to the extent that you can't be in the sun because the suntan might tan your face. As the opinion says, that's called dyeing because that. But if it's not your intention, and especially if you're there for a short amount of time, you don't need to worry about it. So you can take skin and change the texture. Now, who's going to do that on Shabbos anyways? So what's practical about this? Practical about this is, let's say, you have to make the meat kosher. How do you make meat kosher? By salting it. We don't do this anymore these days, but in the olden days, that's what they did. My mother remembers growing up, they would, there where she lived, they would shecht animals, chickens, and they would salt it on their own. So you can't do that in Shabbos because you are now, it's even though, now, let me just correct this point I'm saying. This is rabbinically prohibited because the melacha of tanning applies to skin, not to meat. So rabbinically, it's also prohibited to take meat and use salt to make it kosher, to draw out the blood, or even to use, or the same would be to use salt to preserve it. One of the methods of preserving meat back in those days when there was no refrigeration was using a lot of salt to salt it, and that would preserve the meat for extended amount of time. Now, this rabbinically will also be prohibited to soak food in salt. Now we spoke about the meat, chicken, and now we're speaking about vegetables. If you're going to be using soaking vegetables in salt to change the texture, because as we know from pickles, let's say, what is a pickle is a cucumber that they use salt and vinegar, whatever they use, to change the texture of the cucumber. So rabbinically, that's also prohibited because you're using salt to change the texture, whether it's to take out, whether it's to make it into pickles or to soften it, to make it harder. Whatever it is, if you're using salt to change the texture of the food, examples Shulchan has brought radishes, onions, garlic, all these things, salt will change the texture. Beans, all these things, you cannot put it and soak it in salt, whether it's salt or whatever it takes to change the texture, you're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. Now, what does it mean practical for us? We're not going to do this anyways. Well, cutting up a nice vegetable salad. And you're cutting up cucumbers and tomatoes and all these vegetables that if you were to take salt and soak it in salt, whether in salt water, however way it's done, it would change the texture of these vegetables. Now you're using the salt not in a way to change the texture, but that's how you make vegetable salads. You're not trying to change the texture. You're putting in salt. Come on, we sit down and eat the salad. To change, it's the same tomato, nothing changed. You're not allowed.
To do what exactly?
You're allowed to just put salt on the vegetable salad just like that, without doing what we're going to discuss.
Oh, so just pouring salt.
Just pouring salt onto the vegetable salad, and just like, okay, what's the problem? Putting salt and mixing it, I'm going to eat it. It's not changing the texture. You're not allowed.
Even right before the meal.
Right? You're not allowed. Because One of the reasons is because the salt has power to change the texture. Now, when the salt changes the texture, as we discussed, doesn't happen, it goes over time. It takes time. It doesn't happen right away, it takes time. It's a process. And the process is happening from when you put the salt. When exactly does the salt change the texture? Yes, let's say you have to change the texture, you have to soak it for 3 hours, right? Let's say that would change the texture. At what point does it change the texture? By the end of the 3 hours. The first 2 hours, the salt is doing nothing. Then by the end, no, doesn't work like that, right? The salt is you don't see the results right away, but the salt is doing its job. You don't see it right away. So what it means is the salt is doing its work. You don't see what it's doing, but it's doing. It's working on changing the texture. So if you're putting salt on your vegetables and you're not eating it right away, so what? But right now, the salt is on the vegetable and the salt is doing what it's meant to do, which should not be done on Shabbos. So even though I'm cutting it up, I'm eating it, I'm putting salt there, I'm eating right away. Eating right away. The only way how you're allowed to do it is you put salt and put it to your mouth right away. Put salt, otherwise to leave the salt on it, you can't. Now, what do? The solution is you water it down right away. So as soon as the salt gets on it, you pour vinegar on it. And the vinegar dissolves the salt, so the salt can't have any real effect. I mean, it has the effect of what you want, giving a taste to the salad, but now the salt cannot have that effect on the vegetable because the salt is not just sitting now, it was dissolved, it was melted by the vinegar that you pour on it.
Just vinegar works? Or
Vinegar, it could be oil, any liquid is fine.
Oh, so dressings.
It says that oil is better because oil has a special unique power that it weakens salt more than other liquids, but anything you pour that dissolves the salt is good, so the salt cannot have any effect on the vegetables. Now, this does not apply to foods that the salt cannot change its texture. So, for example, meat and eggs and fish would be the same thing. Meat that's cooked already, fish and eggs. Putting salt on it is not an issue because salt doesn't change the texture. If you cook an egg, now you're gonna do something with salt in it. Is the salt going to change the egg to become hard, soft, sour? It's not going to make it tastier, but it's not going to change the texture. So when it comes putting salt on eggs, fish, meat, that's not an issue. However, there's an opinion that says that if you're going to leave it for a long amount of time, which means, let's say, you're doing it in the morning for the afternoon, preparing it Mishal Shuddis, and you're preparing it way in advance from morning to afternoon, it's going to be for an extended amount of time, then one should not do it. And even then, the Alter Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe brings an opinion that the Alter Rebbe says one could be lenient, and that is that if there's actually an advantage in terms of the taste of the food, that's going to be tastier because let's say now the food is warm, so the salt is going to have is going to accomplish more, make it tastier when you do it now as opposed to later, then you can be lenient, being that there's an advantage to the taste of the food, and it's not a real issue like the issue of vegetables, because salt again does not change the texture at all of fish, meat, and eggs. So therefore, if there's actually an advantage going to make the food taste better if you do it earlier, then the Alter Rebbe says one can be lenient.
So that you can salt even before.
So that you
Can salt.
then you
Like-
can salt. That is being that there's an advantage to the taste of the food. So we're going to be lenient. When there's no advantage, it's just I want to do it in the morning. That was a good time. say, no, it's going to be an extended amount of time, which means as it's really getting into, salt is really getting into it, you should not do it. But if there's an advantage, you say, okay, listen, it's not really, you're not really changing the texture, and there's an advantage, the food is going to taste better. Dr. Never says, we can't be lenient. Okay? Any questions? Okay, we'll stop here.
Well, can I ask something about using the oven?
Yeah, we're just shutting this off.
Morning.
Girls, if you're able to fill out the feedbacks of like all the classes, I can print it out if you prefer. Like, or online, there's like a Google form I shared on
Oh, I
Monday
didn't see.
in the group.
I'm very bad at checking the feedback.
That's great. That's why I just remind you, I think it a little tweet. Okay, this is just from that thing answer. None of you are in Mrs. Bryan's class, right? No. The last one's done.
Is it working really?
Oh, you were there. Okay, fine. That's like-
You sure?
Sure.
There we go.